Police in the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, have clashed with protesters after the government said it was suspending negotiations to join the European Union. Thousands of people gathered near the parliament building to protest the government's move. Armed police used water cannon and tear gas to disperse the crowd. Several protesters were arrested. The government called off its EU entry bid following a decision by the European Parliament to reject the results of Georgia's election last month, alleging significant irregularities. Georgia's Prime Minister accused the EU of blackmail.
Demonstrators assembled outside Georgia's Parliament building in Tbilisi, as well as the governing party's headquarters. Protests were also reported in other Georgian cities. Georgia has seen several anti-government protests this year, but they grew following an election in October. The opposition claims the Kremlin interfered in the campaign in favour of the governing Georgia Dream Party. Critics say it has been moving Georgia in an authoritarian direction for months, but that Thursday marked a watershed moment.
I'm very devastated because we were not expecting the things to go so soon and for the government to make the statements that they did today. And I think that this makes us feel very hopeless, but at the same time I think that we're becoming stronger because of that.
What sparked the protests was an announcement by Georgia's Prime Minister. He said he was suspending the bid to join the EU on the grounds that Brussels had disrespected Georgian values.
It is categorically unacceptable for us to view EU integration as an act of charity that the European Union must grant to us. They are asking from Georgia not reforms, but steps that would mean a rejection of our dignity.
Outside Parliament, there are barricades to prevent protesters from gaining entry. Opinion polls indicate the vast majority of Georgians still want to join the EU, and Georgia Dreams says it intends to do that one day. But for the moment, the divide between the government and the Georgian people's aspirations looks set to grow wider.
Let's cross straight over to Tbilisi now, where our correspondent Maria Katamadze is standing by. Maria, the police crackdown on the protests continued into the early hours of this morning. You were there. What did you witness, and what's the situation now?
Yeah, it was definitely a very long, tough and violent night in Tbilisi. The police, as stated before, used the tear gas, pepper sprays, water cannons. Just bear in mind that it's quite cold now in Tbilisi. It was around 1 degree above Celsius, and people still wouldn't leave the Parliament Square when the police was directing these streams of water at them. Now, we've seen that the police was violently attacking some of the protesters, individual protesters, and they also attacked the press, the local press. 2 journalists were bitten. One journalist, we saw that he was in blood. He had to seek the medical attention. So it was definitely a very brutal crackdown that we witnessed. People were hiding in the pharmacies, in the shops, but the police would storm those shops as well. We understand that around 43 people have been detained as of now, according to the official information of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So if the protests continue, and they are set to continue, we assume this is, I think, not the last time when we are seeing this sort of crackdown on Tbilisi streets.
Now, Georgia's Prime Minister says he's suspending the country's bid to join the European Union. What does that mean for the future of Georgia?
Well, the EU aspirations are enshrined in the country's constitution, and many protesters saw it as an unconstitutional move from the government. Now, it's very hard to find someone, in Tbilisi who don't support EU. According to the polls, indeed, more than 80% of people, Georgians, support that path. But, they are increasingly distrustful in regards to the government, who, which they don't see to be pro-Europe. And it's not just the development that we see now, but it's been growing, this sort of distrust over the past 2 years, especially after the government introduced as the critics would say, Russian-style oppressive laws, such as foreign agent law, for instance. And we've been seeing that there is a huge sort of gap between what really the government wants, especially after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, trying to seek closer ties with Moscow, but people don't seem to see that idea very sort of popular here. It's definitely not. So we're going to see how it's going to develop from here, but things don't look very sort of positive at this point. It's also, we have to keep in mind that the legitimacy of the disputed elections, it's still under question. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the protesters will be able to pressure their government to challenge those elections and to have a new elections. But the government insists that there is no way they're going to have new elections. They say that they won that election, and I think we're going to see more sort of crackdowns in the future, it looks like.
You mentioned, Maria, that opinion polls show the vast majority of Georgians do want to join the European Union. So why is the new government taking such a different path?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I mean, the government wasn't really, despite the fact that they were rallying behind EU flags before the elections, and they were stating, yes, we want to be part of Europe, critics at least, didn't seem to believe that this was the genuine intention. Rather, the government had to, prove their public that, yes, we are pro-EU, but if you look at the actions that they were taking, actually the laws that they were introducing, they were against the EU values, and people saw the contradiction there, and that's why they're so angry and furious about that.
Maria, thank you very much. That was our correspondent, Maria Katamadze, in Tbilisi.